Viewers, the sixth day in Ukraine is turning out to be the deadliest. The Russians have decided to ramp up their bombing campaign and have reduced Kharkiv in the Far East to rubble. Time is of the essence, as Russia could end up crippled by the weight of sanctions. 6 pictures sum up the ferocity of the war as it spirals out of control. Let me break it down for you, viewers. The first picture, or the first set of pictures on your screen, what do they show us? They show us how the Ukrainian government building in the heart of Kharkiv was blown to smithereens. As per Kharkiv mayor, at least 9 people may have been killed in the shelling of the city alone. And some of them might be civilians. This is according to, of course, Ukrainian government claims. Viewers, the second image is once again from Kharkiv. Russian airstrike hitting the suburbs of Brovary. More than 20 people reportedly injured in this strike. It's the second Ukrainian city to be pounded. The third image, satellite images from just outside Kiev. A 65-kilometer long convoy of Russian troops are seen just 25 kilometers away from the capital city of Kiev. And you can see that entire column, viewers. As I said, it extends for many miles. And it tells you just how much firepower the Russians are going to bring to bear upon Kiev if the city doesn't surrender. At least that's the intent that is being conveyed through these visuals. The fourth image, viewers, are satellite images of Russian tanks blown up in Zhytomyr by Ukrainian drones. Now, these drones, viewers, are being pressed into service by the Ukrainians and are said to be quite lethal. This footage has been accessed from the drones themselves, the drone cameras, or from the ops room. These are again videos released by the Ukrainian military. Viewers, the fifth image, a supermarket was bombed in Chernihiv. Chernihiv is one of those points of entry that the Russians have decided to use to get into Kiev. Thick black smoke can be seen billowing from a destroyed shopping center in the city. And once again, the Ukrainian government says that civilians might have been targeted. Another image, which you could say is a defining image, is that of what the Ukrainian government says is the deployment by Russia of a vacuum bomb in Oktyrka. The bomb destroyed a Ukrainian army base in the northeastern town. That's once again the claim by Ukrainian government officials. All of these, viewers, are very public claims. The Ukrainian government has been on a publicity overdrive, viewers, fielding their members of parliament in different capitals of the world to bring to their populations the extent of the damage that Ukraine is suffering and its people are enduring. Viewers, this is not a war for the faint-hearted. Let me tell you this. The Russians are in violation of international law. They can constantly hide behind pretexts. And let me tell you, viewers, there are no innocent parties here. The West, too, is guilty of first using Ukraine as a cat's paw as it tries to expand its own sphere of influence closer to Russia, and then ditching Ukraine pretty much at the altar of a Russian invasion. Unfortunately, viewers, the aftermath of this war is going to be felt across the world, and the first ripple is being felt here in India. An Indian medical student from Karnataka has lost his life. He's 20 years old. His name is Naveen. Naveen hails from Karnataka. And viewers, Naveen was studying medicine in Kharkiv. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has spoken to Naveen's family to express grief. The centre said that Naveen lost his life in Kharkiv, in shelling in Kharkiv. But Naveen's hostel mate Srikanth claims that Naveen was shot dead, so there are conflicting versions. But first, listen in to the Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Bommai, as he pays homage to Naveen.
Prime Minister office spoke to me.
Okay.
And Prime Minister had conveyed that he wanted to speak to the parents. I have given all the details. Prime Minister will speak to the family, and he has already spoken. Prime Minister has already spoken, and we will do our best to recover the body and bring it back to India.
You also said you have requested as soon as possible in 2-3 days if we can get the
because of the
remains.
war zone, it is very difficult, I know. But still, I have requested Minister of External Affairs and PMO to help us to try to recover the mortals.
Fine. Thank you so much. That was the Chief Minister.
Now, viewers, Times Now spoke to Naveen's father, and this is what his father had to tell us about the incident. He's also made an express appeal to politicians to not play politics over his son's death. He says this is a time when India needs to stand in solidarity and work together to extricate every single Indian stranded in Ukraine.
I request to all these political leaders kindly look into the matter and see that donation it's very bad, and all these intelligent students, they are going to study in abroad. They think that education here, if they plan to get that education here, they have to pay crores to get that seat. And the same education, better than this, they are getting very good education in abroad, and all this practical equipment also very standard.
Naveen Shekarappa, viewers, is dead, but his father, even though is shattered inwardly, is counseling all Indians to stand together tonight and for the many more nights that we will be spending agonizing over the fate of stranded Indian youth and other citizens. Viewers, there is confusion over the circumstances around Naveen's death, and we're hoping for a statement, a more elaborate statement going into the circumstances. The Indian government has already summoned the envoys of Russia and Ukraine, asking them to provide safe passage to other stranded Indians. One hopes that the governments of Russia and Ukraine heed the requests that are being made by India. In the meantime, viewers, Times Now spoke earlier to Naveen's dear friend Srikanth, who was the last person to speak to him within minutes of his death. Here's this conversation.
I visited the supermarket at 8:45, around 8:45. It was closed. There was no any missile or bombing, anything in that region. I think, but as we know, he's shot by a gunshot by any one of a troop, maybe. But we don't know what is the exact. But there is in that region, it's completely nothing. Nothing has happened for that store or anything. The store is also like that. The area is also like that. But he has got a gunshot.
So, Srikanth, you're saying that he was shot, not blown up in a strike?
No, he's shot by a gunshot. The market is there, nothing is there. Everything is clear. There is no sign of bombing or missile, anything. Everything is fine there. So it may be a gunshot.
Let me go across to Pradeep Datta, who is just a few hours away from the border between Poland and Ukraine. Now, Pradeep, I know that you're making your way across, but this is an important moment that we have this opportunity to speak to you, because there are a large number of Indian students now also in Poland who have been extracted out, in fact, of Ukraine. Now, the situation is very bad in certain areas. What are you hearing from your sources about the condition of Indian students right now trapped in the war zone in Ukraine?
Rahul, when we talk about conflicts, the truth is the first casualty, and here in this case, same thing has happened because there are conflicting reports coming about Naveen. As Naveen, the friend, was saying that he was shot, and some people say that there was a shelling from the Russian troops, and because of that, the shrapnel hit him while he was waiting outside a grocery store, and that was the time when he was hit by shrapnel. And if you look at the overall story of Russia and Ukraine, again, the truth is the biggest casualty, and uncertainty is the only certainty. Why I'm saying the truth is the biggest casualty? Because each side is claiming that other one to be an aggressor. And so far as if you look at what the Ukrainian government is claiming, they are saying that they had been using a vacuum bomb. They had tried their level best to target civilians because they are trying to generate fear. So it has been like all those civilians are like sitting ducks. Either they are hiding inside the basement or they are in those bunkers where from they can prevent themselves from those shells being fired by the Russian troops. Whatever weaponry Russians are having in their arsenal, they are using short-range ballistic missile. They are using helicopter gunships. They are firing shells so that what Russians initially thought on February 24th, when they started rolling their tanks on the streets of Ukraine, they thought that it is going to be a cakewalk. For 24 hours, Rahul, it appears that it will be like a cakewalk for them. But now it appears that they are getting some kind of a resistance from Ukrainian forces. That's one of the reasons that they had not been able to occupy Kyiv. Now they're asking all the residents who are putting up in Kyiv to leave from that area. But so far as government of India is concerned, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has already made up a point that each and every soul, each and every Indian who is stuck up right now in Ukraine will be brought to safer zone. That's one of the reasons that 4 union ministers have been assigned a task. And today, one of the union ministers, VK Singh, he has reached here, Poland. He interacted with the students in Warsaw. Tomorrow, he'll be moving towards the border belt, where large number of students are stuck up. Within hours, we'll also be reaching that place where the students are stuck up on the border belt, because many of them had to have a sleepless night and a freezing cold because they are not allowed to cross over to this side. Because government of India has already summoned the ambassadors from both the country, asking them to provide safe passage. That this is what it Prime Minister Narendra Modi has discussed when he had a 26-minute conversation 3-4 days back with Vladimir Putin.
Pradeep, these governments now are on test, and we're going to check back with you and speak to you about the cooperative attitude of the Polish government. So do stay on. I will come back to you in just a few moments. Viewers, let's just open this up and ask some basic questions, because the opposition has begun to criticize now intensely the government for doing little. It says that this government is apathetic. Jaiveer Shergill says NDA must shift focus from photo ops to evacuations, obviously taking a pot shot at the fact that the ministers are flying out or have been greeting the returning students at airports, etc. Rahul Gandhi says we need a strategic evacuation plan. Every minute pressures suggesting that the government doesn't have one. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary says that the Prime Minister is distracted by elections and he should be focusing on the more important task at hand. Now, I want to open this up, and I want to first bring in Sushant Sareen. Sushant Sareen, who is responsible at the end of the day for this? The opposition, of course, would want us to believe it's the government entirely, and they have a right, of course, to play politics or use their platforms to target the government. But in a situation like this, what are the challenges, first of all? And how difficult is it for a government to try and use its influence when you have a full-blown invasion on?
Rahul, the government can try, and I think that is what the government is trying to do. But beyond that, unless we can ask either side to just step back, give us a window of 5-6 hours in which we can pull out our people and pull them out. Can only be possible if you can arrange the logistics. You have to be able to send some buses or trains. I don't know whether the train lines are still there. I don't know what the state of the roads is. It's impossible to know. We already know that the air thing is closed. The airports have been blown apart. So it's going to be a difficult task, number one. Number two, the sides have to be ready to listen to you enough to stop the war. Will the Russians, if they feel that they have to now press home their advantage or they need to recover the momentum, be ready to give a pause of 6 hours so that you can pull out 6 or 12 or whatever? You can pull out people. Will the Ukrainians say, okay, fine, we announce a ceasefire for the next so many this thing, and we will not do anything to protect ourselves so that you can pull people out? Now, these are very clear challenges. The government issued an advisory after an advisory. Even the Ukrainian government did not think that an invasion would take place. At best, they thought there would be some kind of incursions along the border. Nobody expected a full-scale invasion, even though the Americans were warning them. When the government of India asked the students to leave Ukraine as soon as possible, everybody kind of was waiting to watch what was going to happen. Now there's a full-blown crisis. I really wish people who, it's very easy to bandy terms like you don't have a strategic plan. Please give us a strategic plan. Please tell us what the government should do. It's very easy. The other thing is you need the ministers. I agree with the bit about, ministers standing at the airport and handing out roses. That's such a stupid thing to do. But I completely agree that you have sent cabinet ministers to the countries along the borders, because there will be certain decisions which are probably above the pay grade of the embassy out there. And the political people out there, cabinet ministers, can take those decisions, number one. Number two, when they interact with the host government, I think they bring even greater weight than the local ambassador can do. Also remember, the missions in these countries are not big missions like we have in the US or the UK or even Moscow. These are generally very small missions, maybe 8 people, 10 people, 15 at best, in most cases less. To expect that, these are equipped to handle a crisis of this magnitude, when you have thousands of students trying to make across the border in a situation of war, okay, I think you have to cut some slack. It's a good decision that ministers have gone. But ministers standing at the airport handing out roses, I'm sure they have better things to do.
Okay, well, let me bring in General Bakshi to get another professional opinion. He's, of course, been in combat zones. General Bakshi, could the risk to Indian citizens have been avoided?
Look, Rahul, 8 days before the invasion, the Indian embassy had begun to issue, alerts, issue advisories to please leave the country at the fastest possible. The simple fact then was, Rahul, that very few people believed that the Russians would go beyond bluff and bluster. The Ukrainians themselves were quite convinced that nothing would happen. This was all posturing. That is why the Ukrainians have been surprised. That is why the Russians are 150 kilometers inside from the Belarus border to Kyiv. You see, because, don't forget it, Russian Maskarovika, their deception operations have been good, have been from a military professional point of view, and like I said, immoral, but I'm saying that a military professional point of view, they were able to, despite all the technological satellites picking up every tank, every gun, you can make out the enemy concentrations. You cannot make out their intention. So we were caught by surprise. The students were caught by surprise. Some of them, bichare, poor fellows, they were not aware. They were scoffing the threats of war. But now that a war has started, don't forget, Rahul, the Americans told their citizens, we will not be able to evacuate you when the bombs start flying. The United Kingdom has told its citizens, we can do nothing. What have the Chinese embassy said? They are doing nothing. They have said that this is a shooting war on, and if you expect that Russia or Ukraine will stop the war to let your citizens go because it is important for the optics or whatever, I think you need to take a walk. You see, because that is not the reality. That is why the safest place, as I had said on your channel, from my military experience, is to get underground, wait it out. Kharkiv is a different story because what is happening there looks ominous. And this morning on many channels, I personally have requested people get the hell out of Kharkiv. Get the hell out of there. You see, because Russians had warned yesterday. They have given from their side 2 days. Now they'll say, how do we know that so-and-so, is an Indian? Running on the roads is an Indian when their bombers, jet fighters, their tanks are rumbling. In wartime, people shoot first and ask questions later. General Gerasimov, the Russian chief of staff, is a hybrid warfare expert. But this has switched from hybrid war to full-scale conventional war. And if you think that people will stop shooting to let Indians go, because some of our opposition parties want it that way, it won't happen.
Okay, let me bring in...
I agree with Sushant.
Okay.
You tell us the plan.
Madhavan Narayanan, how do you respond to our two experts tonight who say that, look, it's facile to be blaming the government for a situation which is not in their control?
Well, Rahul, all I can say is that it is not for us or you or me or General Bakshi or anybody to even discuss this, because social media is full of videos from Indian students and people are forming their own impressions and opinions on what the government should be doing and not be doing. I fully take into account the facts said by Sushant Sareen and General Bakshi, with whom I rarely would agree. But it's a fact that logistically this is difficult. But I had tweeted to Dr. Jaishankar myself yesterday, saying that one option could be having a tricolor and a white flag. I mean, this is a very common man's suggestion. I agree that wartime situations are not typical, but it's also good to have 4 ministers on the ground putting some kind of a pressure on the diplomats who might be bureaucratic in their approach. But having said that, the real deal is not in the neighboring countries. The real deal is in the roads that lead from Kyiv and Kharkiv to the border. And how do we get the students out of there? One thing that could have been done by the government is to issue a travel advisory well in advance when President Biden of the United States was saying that Putin is going to invade Ukraine. That was very clear. Although nobody expected an invasion, the fact is that the US put out a travel advisory. The US president was on record several times saying that an invasion was imminent, that could have put some fire under the chairs of our own diplomats and our foreign ministry. And whether we like it or not, there will be a certain amount of political questioning, accountability, just as it was in the case of, say, the second wave of the coronavirus.
Sure.
And there was, so
Sanju,
I think let us be very logical about this and let us be clinical about this.
Okay. Okay.
So that we cannot apportion blame, but we cannot evade accountability.
Okay. Can the BJP-led government at the center evade accountability, Sanju Verma? That's the question.
Rahul, first and foremost, to your program, I would like to pay condolences to the family of Naveen. It's extremely heart-wrenching to have a 21-year-old lose his life in the circumstances that he did. I would hate to politicize this, and I say this in all seriousness. I think, all the previous gentlemen have made some valid suggestions. Be that as it may, point number one, I will take the opinion of, the last gentleman. Does the Modi government shy away from accountability, transparency in the manner in which it functions? Absolutely not. Even if you wanted to, in this age of 24/7 social media, accountability is something that is foisted upon you. So there is no getting away from accountability. Point number two, it is very fine to sit here and talk about real politics and give bhashan about foreign policy. And I'm not going to be mild about this. Just about everybody and everybody's uncle is now telling the Modi government it should have abstained or not abstained at the special session of the UNSC, how it should go about engaging in terms of strategic maneuvering. Please understand, point number one, we are still not out of COVID. Point number two, it is still peak winter there. Point number 3, you are talking about one superpower which is completely nuclear armed and enabled and is also one of the permanent members of the United Nations. So if you're going to compare the situation today with the 1990-91 Gulf War, don't forget that you're comparing apples with watermelons, and General Bakshi will be able to corroborate this. In the Gulf War, which lasted for about 18 months, it was a guerrilla warfare. It was a proxy war where one superpower, the United States of America, led a coalition of 35 countries against Iraq once it invaded Kuwait. But today the situation is different. You don't know who is on whose side, because it's very fine to sit here and say that Russia is the oppressor, the Ukraine is the victim, but that is not necessarily the case. Don't forget, and let me nudge the memory of some of the people through your channel, Rahul, that in 1971, barely 61 odd years back, United States stood with Pakistan. Had it not been for Russia, Bangladesh would have never got independent. Don't give this version. Don't give this yarn to the Modi government. 1 minute. We are doing all that we can. We are doing all that we should. At this stage, it is not optics that matter. Rahul Gandhi can play the proverbial role. Ranjit Surjewala can play the proverbial role. Tell me one country which has sent 4 high-flying senior cabinet-ranked ministers into the heart of the war zone to ensure evacuation. Do you think it is for photo ops? Certainly not. Photo ops are done by the Ladki Hu Lad Sakti Hu brigade.
Okay.
The Modi government does not engage in photo ops. We are down to serious business. More than 8,000 students have been safely evacuated, and we will ensure everybody comes back to the last seat.
Okay, look, we were hoping for a briefing from the MEA on the circumstances of the death now of this student, and you heard, viewers, that I spoke to one of his dear friends who was with him in that bunker, and then he sort of left the bunker. Naveen did, to get some provisions, and never came back. And within 20 minutes, the friend realized that something was terribly wrong. Now, there are conflicting versions as to what led to his death. The original tweet that was put out by the MEA suggested that he was killed in a bombing raid, an airstrike, but that isn't perhaps the case. So what really happened? We need to, of course, get clarity on that. But Sushant Sareen, 30 seconds really before I move on. 30 seconds, you raised your hand. Yeah, 30 seconds.
Yeah, Rahul, even on this kid's death, and it's very unfortunate, his friend himself has added the word maybe. He says that in that place, there was no shelling which took place, so maybe he was shot. Now, everybody just speculates. I think the important thing is that the kid has passed away.
Yes.
He has become a casualty of this war.
Yes.
And that is bad enough. Now, the circumstances are a matter of detail, and I don't think that is something that should bother us too much. It is the death which is more important.
Yes, that's right. The rest is all detail. You're absolutely right. The casualty, we can't bring Naveen back. But what we can certainly do is not be distracted from the larger now endeavor, which is to bring all other Indians back. And that's where we need to be focusing. And let's hope that we can come up with constructive solutions to this very unfortunate situation that thousands of Indian students now find themselves in. Viewers, as I've been saying, the first casualty of a war is truth. And there are many versions. Thank you, gentlemen.